We've had a very interesting and high energy first three Torah portions of the book of Exodus. And the Torah does not stop with the excitement, rather it continues. And the 10 plagues are finished. The Jewish people are running away from the Egyptians, and the sea is about to split for them. And we know the story. The Jews enter, the Egyptians follow suit, the Jews emerge, and the Egyptians, well, they don't get out. Rather, the water comes crashing down on them. And it's ironic because what was one of the great things that Paro's advisors always reminded Paro about is whatever we do, make sure that we don't do something that Hashem's going to pay us back with. So they thought, what's the greatest way for us to be sure that we will not be punished is let's do something that God made a promise against. God promised he will not flood the world again. So they felt like they were invincible when it came to water, and that's why they threw the babies into the water when they were born. But little did they know that Hashem had planned for them, that not that Hashem would bring the water to them, which even though was permitted, because God only made a promise to Noah that the entire earth, the entire planet would not be flooded again. Of course, the tsunami could have come and swept away Egypt in 2 seconds. But what Hashem did was even greater than that. What Hashem did was he brought the Egyptians into the place of water. It was just like perfectly planned for it to happen the way it did. And that was a great and beautiful thing. So the Jews emerge from the sea, and they all come out looking behind them and seeing that all the Egyptians, those who hated them, their enemies, were all gone and they perished. So they all break out in a prophetic song, singing thanks to Hashem. It's the famous Az Yashir that we actually sing daily, every day in our prayer, whether it's a holiday, whether it's Shabbat, whether it's a regular day. Even on Tisha B'Av, there's not one day that goes by in the 365 days of the year that we do not read and sing the Az Yashir portion that we read in this week's Torah portion as part of our prayer in the morning. So it's, not too many parts of our prayer made it that far along, and Az Yashir did. So there's a verse that Rav Leib wants to address and teach us a very, very, very important lesson when it comes to the concept of mindset. So the verse says, and feel free to look at your screen. This is the verse in chapter 15, verse 2. This is part of the Az Yashir prayer. We say, Ozi v'zimratya vayhili lishua. The Eternal's strength and his vengeance were my salvation. Ze keli ve'anveu. This is my God, and I will make him a habitation. It's not the best way to translate it, but we'll soon see it in a moment. Elokei avi va'aromemenhu, the God of my father, that I will ascribe to him exaltation. Very flowery, but the point that we want to pay attention to, at least Reb Leib does this week, is these words, Ze keli ve'anvehu, this is my God, ve'anvehu, let's beautify him. So what does that really mean? How do we understand what those 3 words mean? So thank God for the Talmud. As more often than not, the Talmud explains what the Torah really means. And the Talmud in Masechet Shabbat, page 133b, explains that this verse is teaching us, it's actually the source that we have an obligation to beautify mitzvot. When we fulfill a mitzvah, it should be done in a gorgeous, in a beautiful way. And the Talmud continues and explains that when we make a sukkah, the sukkah should be beautiful. When we have a lulav and an etrog, they should be beautiful. They should have what's called hidur in Hebrew, to be mihader, to make it beautiful. A shofar should be beautiful. Our tzitzit should be nice and beautiful. A Torah scroll should be nice and beautiful and written in a very clear and beautiful way. The Talmud says these words, Ze Keli Ve'anvehu, are teaching us that this is our God. Let's beautify him. That means through the observance of our mitzvot, we should beautify whatever we do, and that is a great honor to Hashem. So Reb Leib now analyzes this, and he says, this halacha is actually a novelty. It's a chidush. Because if the Talmud would have not have told us that there is a specific commandment for us to beautify mitzvot when we do it, we would have thought, or there'd be at least room to think, that beautifying a mitzvah may, and putting special emphasis on beautifying the physicality of a mitzvah, may be making the mitzvah vain, or even destroying the mitzvah, as Reb Leib says. How so? He brings three proofs that maybe, if it were not for this obligation, it would actually be wrong to put special emphasis on beautifying in the physical aspects of making it look nicer, of making a mitzvah look nicer. He brings three different proofs how we would have thought, or maybe it's really not a good thing for one to beautify mitzvahs. So the first is based on the Talmud in Masechet Rosh Hashanah, page 28a, that says that the purpose of mitzvahs, the purpose why Hashem gave us a mitzvah, is not in order that we gain any special benefit or even enjoy them. Rather, the purpose for a mitzvah is in order for us to obey Hashem, and specifically to accept his yoke upon us, his ol malchut shamayim, the yoke of Hashem's reign as king. That's the purpose of us fulfilling mitzvot. So Reb Leib says, have you ever seen an animal go out to plow in a golden yoke? No, never. So his point is that, isn't there a reason for us to be worried that when we beautify a mitzvah, we may forget that we're Hashem's slaves? We may forget that we have this yoke of Hashem upon us, and on the contrary, maybe consider ourselves to be masters in our own right. So that's his first point. His first point is that when we beautify a mitzvah, there may be room to make the mistake of considering ourselves as a master opposed to a servant or a slave of Hashem. That's number one. Second is that the Talmud also teaches us that the word anvehu is coming to say that how do we say this? That the point of having a mitzvah look good or nice is something extremely special. And it's exterior. It's something that we see and that we enjoy. But Reb Leib wants to say, who says that God cares about that? Who said that God cares about us beautifying a mitzvah and making ourselves feel good and honorable? The point of a mitzvah is in order for our intentions to connect to Hashem. So beautifying the mitzvah only really works when that's our intention. So again, Reb Leib is saying, what if a person's intention is not for that? Who says that Hashem even cares about the physical aspects of beautifying a mitzvah? And the third is, Reb Leib says, even if you want to say that you are permitted to enjoy any benefit from a mitzvah, who said that Hashem wants us to beautify it in a physical way? Actually, in a physical way. Maybe Hashem's intention was for us to beautify it in our own intention, our own kavanah, and not put the emphasis on the physical aspect of beautifying the mitzvah, but rather on the spiritual and the intellectual aspect of really, really beautifying the mitzvah. Because maybe if the emphasis is going to be put on the physical aspect of the mitzvah, that may override and dilute the spiritual aspect and intention of the mitzvah. So these are the three reasons why Reb Leib says, if it was not for the Talmud to say that it was an obligation to beautify a mitzvah, I would have thought not to. Again, number one is because maybe that's going to make us forget that we are the servants of Hashem. We may start thinking too much of ourselves. Second is that maybe Hashem's intention was never to beautify it physically. Who said Hashem cares about that? And third is, even if we are able to benefit from a mitzvah, but that's giving ourselves benefit, and we may start putting too much emphasis on that opposed to the observance of that actual mitzvah. So Reb Leib answers in a beautiful, beautiful way. It really is nice. He says that when we understand who is actually singing this praise for the first time, everything makes sense. All these questions vanish. So who was the first to sing this praise, this song? Oh, of course, it was the Jews who emerged out of the sea. But who exactly were they? So the Talmud reminds us in Masechet Sotah, page 11b, that it was in the merit of the Nashim Tzadkaniyot, the righteous women, not men, women of the Jewish people, that Bnei Israel were saved from this exile, that they were freed from Egypt. And the Talmud goes on and continues, what is it that they did to merit such a great deed? To the point where there were many miracles done on their behalf, and the entire Exodus is accredited to the righteous women who were during that time. So you know what it was? Reb Leib explains. Sorry, this is actually the Talmud. The Talmud tells us because they were committed to having and raising children. They got pregnant in the fields and they gave birth under trees, even when it was decreed against them to have children. These children were born in Egypt to committed mothers. Those children were the ones who sang, Ze Keli Vanfeu, this is my God, let's beautify him. That's what the Talmud says. So Reb Leib explains and he says, this piece of Talmud says it all. It answers everything. He says, pause and think for a moment. How would these women have gotten their husbands to want to have more kids? They had a long, hard day of slave work, slave labor. They were being tortured physically, emotionally. The Egyptians did not even let the Jews sleep at night at home. There was no time to have kids. There was no will, there was no drive to want to bring children into this world. Yet Rashi tells us, you know what the women did? When it came to the time for donating for the Mishkan, for the tabernacle, you know what the women gave? Besides for their gold and their jewelry, they came and they gave mirrors, small mirrors, hand mirrors. And Rashi explains, you know what that was? Those were the mirrors that these Jewish women used in order to see how they looked before they saw their husbands. They would put on makeup and nice clothes, and then they would see how they looked before they saw their husbands to look attractive to their husbands, in order that they would want to be together and bring more babies into this world. That's what Rashi says. Reb Leib says, these righteous women in Egypt, do you know why they got all dressed up and they beautified themselves? It was for one reason and one reason only. It was so that they would look attractive to their husbands and they could bring more children into this world. That means even if they had to go out into the fields in order to procreate and under trees to give birth, any way to capture their husband's attention by beautifying themselves, that was their greatest merit for the entire Exodus to be accredited to them. Reb Leib says we see something absolutely beautiful over here. We see that when you beautify something, it actually can be the holiest thing to do. When? Reb Leib says when our intentions are pure and for the sake of Hashem. So let's understand this. If the reason why someone looks to buy the nicest etrog, the nicest sukkah, the nicest shofar, to have the nicest Torah written is to show off or to feel good. Well, indeed, there's no mitzvah in doing that. But if the intention is to connect to the Borei Olam, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to get closer to him by fulfilling his commandment in a beautiful way, because that's what he wants, then that's a pure and holy thing. That's a great purpose. Hashem wants us to beautify what he created by observing it, by lifting it up and doing a mitzvah with it. That was the whole purpose of creation. And that's why Hashem wanted us to do mitzvah with a good intention, chas v'shalom, not for the bad. So the very same deed can be a world of difference based on what's going on in our minds. Now let's move on to the next part. If the reason why a woman beautifies herself, she gets all dressed up, she puts on makeup, she fixes her hair, she puts on jewelry. If the reason why she does that is to look attractive and provocative, chas v'shalom, God forbid, then shame on her, says Reb Leib. But if she's doing it to cause others to look at her and stumble and sin, then that's a major issue. But if her intention is for her husband, to look good for her husband, so that he would be attracted to her, and that strengthens their love and commitment that they have for one another, then that's a great mitzvah. It's a mitzvah for a woman to look beautiful, not only for herself, but also for her husband. And that's a very, very important deed. But what's in her mind when she's doing so? Now, yes, of course, certain things are meant for private and private only. But that also is a mitzvah. It's a very, very powerful concept that Leib's teaching us tonight. That the truth is that beauty is rooted in holiness. The determining factor, however, is what's your intention when you beautify something? When you beautify a mitzvah, when you beautify yourself, when you make something nice, when you make your house look nice by painting it or furniture or whatever it may be, are you doing that for the sake of having a beautiful Shabbat table and being able to invite people in and showing them that you could live a Torah committed life and still beautify it, taking the mitzvahs and lifting them up? Or is it for your own ego or to show off, chas v'shalom? Every mitzvah we do, Sukkah, Lulav Etrog, Sefer Torah, Tefillin, everything. What is your intention? Is your intention to be hospitable? Is your intention to encourage others? Is your intention to elevate the physicality of this world to connect to Hashem? Or is it for selfish reasons that, frankly, there is no room for? And that's what Reb Leib is teaching us tonight. Reb Leib is teaching us, based on our intention, beautifying something can actually be the holiest of deeds, as we see by our matriarchs, the women in Egypt, the mothers of Egypt, where they beautified themselves just to bring more life into the world, more Jewish life into a genocide, but nevertheless, to bring more children. Because the more children that came into the world back then, the more there were when they left, and the more there were from then and on. So may this lesson be a tremendous inspiration and prayer for us, that we understand that we're not supposed to fulfill mitzvot in a dirty, disgusting way. We should not disregard ourselves or our surroundings. No, we should beautify it, but with what intention? That's the difference. It all clicks up in here. And when it clicks for the right purpose, when it's for the sake of God, when it's for the sake of our kids, when it's for the sake of our spouse, well, that's a great mitzvah and that's a great deed. And that is rooted, even though it's in a physical way, it's rooted in the deepest place of holiness because it has the right intention. So may Hashem help us that we'll always have all of our deeds and actions rooted in the right intention, the intention of purity and holiness. That Hashem will bless us to have that purity and holiness continue to our children and grandchildren, B'ezrat Hashem, that they would learn from those ways and also do the same B'ezrat Hashem.